I'm Sarah Burke, and this is the Women in Media podcast. I'm very excited about having this guest on. I feel like I've been trying to have her on this podcast since I started it. She's one of Canada's most respected music executives. She's one of the architects behind the modern independent music scene here in Canada. She is founder and president of Six Shooter Records, and she spent 25 years championing artists who refuse to fit in a box. Please welcome Shauna de Cartier.
Aww. Thank you.
So you founded this record label in 2000, one of the very first female-run record labels, an independent record label. Where did you find yourself in the music scene? How did you end up in the music scene? And why were those things so important to you when you started this venture with Six Shooter?
Probably a long answer. I'll try to keep it as short as possible. But I grew up in Edmonton, Alberta, and I was in a corporate environment. And doing actually pretty well in that environment. They offered me a promotion, and instead of taking that promotion, I ended up quitting my job entirely and started to manage my friend's band. And so that was like a move that not very many people understood. It's like a number of reasons behind that, but it's mostly comes down to values and authenticity in a way. One of my first jobs ever was in theater. I was a publicist at a cutting edge theater company, and that was like my first real job after university. I found my people. I didn't know I was looking for my people, but I found my people, and it was very transformative. I learned a lot about art and artists. And when I was there, I found that who I was and what I did was the same. And I just didn't want to be in an environment where I couldn't be myself, in order to succeed. So I took the job managing my friend's band, and I did that for 2 years. They taught me a lot. And then I moved to Toronto and I started a record label. So I kind of arrived in Toronto fully formed. I've never worked for another music company. I didn't have any mentors, just my friends in this band. That was kind of it. And
your mentors were the artists that you worked with, the artists that you met in theater?
The one band that I worked with. Yeah. Yeah. So, that changed when I came to Toronto. I really looked for mentorship. But there used to be a label called Three Gut Records. And I don't know, you probably know Tyler Clark Burke. That label only lasted about 5 years, but that was another record label. At the time, they had the Constantines, among other artists. And Tyler is just so cool. I worked really hard to become her friend. I was just she's the coolest person I've ever met in my life, and I want to be her friend. So we are still friends.
I love that. Well, I want to back you up a little bit here. First of all, your friend's band, are they still around, or is it anyone we would know?
You probably wouldn't know them, but yes, they are still around.
Okay.
They are called Captain Tractor.
Okay.
They are a Celtic rock band from Edmonton, Alberta.
Okay.
And one of their singers and songwriters in the band is Chris Winters. And Chris actually works with Six Shooter now. So he's the one that convinced me to quit my upwardly mobile corporate job to manage his band. And then years later, I hired him to work at Six Shooter. So he started with me at the festival, and he was in charge of sponsorship for the festival meeting Interstellar Rodeo. It's a festival that we did. We did 8 of them in Edmonton and 3 in Winnipeg. And now he is the lead manager for the Dead South, which is our biggest band. Yeah.
If you're not familiar, by hearing the Dead South, you go look them up. And the second that you hear, those 1 or 2 songs that I know personally have gone viral, whether you are in the music industry or not, you will know exactly who we're talking about. But, the independent thing and the working with women thing, I want to circle back to that a little bit. Do you think it was the corporate environment that you were in Edmonton that pushed you towards independence and not having to sort of answer to red tape or the man?
No, was really no other pathway. Like I said, I didn't grow up in Toronto. There's no record. Well, there is a record label in Edmonton, Stony Plain Records, or at least there was. But that sort of major label scene was just stuff of myth. When you come from what I call the hinterland. And, it's just, you're just not, I can't even imagine being part of that scene. It doesn't even occur to you to be part of that scene. And I guess once I moved to Toronto and became more familiar with the landscape and met some people that worked at major labels. I still didn't really feel connected to that because similar to really any corporate environment where people they have to work the system.
Yeah, you wanted your own
Yeah.
system.
Yeah, yeah. I just rather work with directly with the artists and do all the jobs and all of that. So, I mean, I did get a distribution deal through a major label, so I do have some experience in that realm.
For sure. And then if we want to go back to like this idea of asking someone to be your partner in the label, so we're talking about Helen Britton.
Yeah.
And you guys were, just recognized with the MMF Canada Honor Roll, which, this is a celebration of decades of your work. But I imagine that when you have an idea like this that you're so passionate about, you can't just pick anyone to be your partner. So how did that come?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily go set out looking for a partner. Actually, like in a blip, I had a partner before I started Six Shooter. Had a partner in another record label. It didn't last very long. And I came away from that experience thinking I'm not partnership material. Like it's just not like my personality. It just doesn't work. I'm too bossy, like, or whatever. So back in 2003, I had my first child and I was sharing an office space with about 6 other women, and all the women were managers or like running their own independent companies. And we had this 750 square foot office with all of us round in there. And I couldn't afford childcare. And I had an assistant, and she was sick and she had to leave. And so I just started bringing my baby at 10 days old. So
Oh my God. I'm so not
to,
surprised to hear you say that, but
totally,
wow.
yeah. Yeah, it was kind of funny. I mean, it's even when I was in labor, I was trying to negotiate a distribution deal with EMI. I remember being on the phone with him, with Steve McCauley.
Okay.
I would have to put him on. Okay, can you hold for a minute? And put him on hold and have a contraction, and then go back. I mean, I didn't get the record deal, and then I had to go to the hospital and I had the baby or whatever. The
You're
baby's
when you were in labor.
yeah, yeah. Like I didn't want to tell him, oh, I can't talk now. It took me a really long time to get him on the phone, and I didn't want to say, oh, I'm in labor because I just felt like who's going to give a distribution deal to a solely owned record label run by a woman who's about to have a baby? Like it's just not. I would bring my baby into the office, and that was I didn't ask, and they didn't complain, but these are all like young women starting companies, and at this time, all business is done on the phone,
Hmm.
and then there's a crying baby in the background. Like it's not a good look for any of them. 'Cause, oh, is your baby
Yeah.
crying? Like I'm sure you have to go, like kind of thing. And one of the people that we shared office space was Helen Britton, and she was actually working with a mutual friend of ours, Heather Pollock, in her management company. But Helen just loves babies, so she was just always over on my side of the office, picking up the baby, feeding the baby. If the baby was crying, to take it out in the hallway, like,
Yeah.
just love babies. And I didn't have an assistant, and I could only afford like one person for 12 hours a week. Like I just didn't have any money,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So, but I ended up hiring Helen to be my assistant. And she had like 5 or 6 jobs. So like she just added on another job. This is how she was making ends meet. She worked everywhere. And she was amazing. Like she's still amazing. She would just do whatever needed to be done. Like if the baby's diaper needed to be changed, she changed the diaper. Or if we needed to call college radio to promote a record that we put out, she would call the radio stations. Like, it's just like it didn't matter. There was no separation between motherhood duties and and record label duties kind of thing. So we traveled to Midem, which was a conference in the south of France that everybody would go to every year in January. And we did tag team, daycare, like childcare, and then meetings. Like it was just this whole thing. And she just was on board.
Wow.
And so it's like after about like 3 or 4 months, I was just like, I'm not paying myself. I don't have childcare. I have all these bands. I was managing the Weaker Thans and the Rio Statics and Luke Doucette and Martin Tielli and Christine Fellows and Justin Rutledge. And like, just I had this giant roster, and it was a lot of work. So I just said, like, do you want to be partners? And she's 10 years younger than me, and she was really just getting started, but it didn't matter. I'd invested this money, or I have more experience, or I like, it was just, that clearly she's what I need to move forward. And it just worked. So we've been
Yeah.
partners for 22 years now. And it's just the best decision I think that either of us have ever made. And we really support each other. I think the age difference is good. Like, it makes us like not competitive. Like, it's,
You bring different qualities
yeah,
and experience and perspective to the table. But
yeah.
wouldn't you say, and this has certainly been my experience, but women, I think, sometimes find it hard to ask for help. So even the process you went through, like trying it all by yourself and realizing like I can do more if I do ask for help. Was that a thing for you?
No, it's not hard for me to ask for help. I don't think so. I mean, I produced a festival, and that's all volunteers.
Yeah.
I'm not like full of pride that way. Like, I'm going to do it myself. I don't,
Yeah.
there's just a lot of times you want and need help, and maybe you ask for it and you don't get it. Like, there's maybe that.
Right. Like,
But
okay,
yeah,
being turned down and I'm sure even giving like a piece of this pie up.
like, I don't think there's many men that would do that. Like,
Hmm.
I think it's, I don't want to make too many generalizations about men versus women, but I do think that women tend to approach their work in whatever capacity that is as a more collaborative venture. And, if you're going to collaborate, does somebody need to be the boss, or does somebody, like, need to, I don't know. I think that it's possible to have
Hmm.
like co-presidents or whatever. I find that easy. I don't know. I come from a big family.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. When the 25th anniversary of Six Shooter Records came up, whether you were thinking about how you wanted to celebrate or like looking back at all the things you've accomplished, I'm sure there were also some moments that you wanted to throw in the towel. Is there a time where you almost folded this entire thing? And what was the lesson that kept you going?
I wasn't anywhere near wanting to throw it in the towel just because I had a
Good.
baby. Like, that was not,
Okay, good.
that didn't seem like impossible. Like, that part of it,
Yeah.
it's like, obviously there's a baby is a lot to take care of. So,
Yeah.
but
Business wise.
it was, I think, like, more, I think it was probably around 2007 or 2008, like right
So we're in a
in that,
recession.
Six Shooter had really started to gain, like, garner attention or whatever. And we had 4 or 5 records that we released that year in the top 10 lists everywhere. And it's a really exciting time, but it was also a really expensive time. That's a lot of records that need money to be invested in them so that they can reach their potential, kind of thing. And so we were really, really close to bankruptcy. I used to just run numbers in my head, like, any spare minute. I'd be like, okay, I think I can get the money from there, and oh, if this comes through, and like, I get, just always strategizing, like, how to keep my head above water, like, and it wasn't above water, but just how to keep the cash flow. Like, I wouldn't recommend this to anybody, but I didn't have any other options, because you can't really get bank loans, like, really, for a record label anyway, but particularly if you're a woman, you can't get a bank loan.
Yeah.
And so, I had a lot of credit cards and lines of credit. But Helen and I were like, okay, this isn't working. Like, we could go bankrupt like next week. And what are we going to do? We knew that we loved working together, and but that it's just like, oh, this record label is just too hard. And so we actually brainstormed a bunch of different ideas. One of them was like starting a dating service, which
This is
we
not what I
should
thought you were
have
gonna
done.
say.
We should have done that, because, like, then dating apps, at least before dating apps existed, right? So I feel like if we had made a dating app, we did did that business, like we would be like really rich.
A six-shooter match or six-shooter, something fun like that.
Yeah. So anyway, we didn't end up doing that, but yeah, it was pretty tough for those. Like the first decade was tough and like just all around. And I think
Yeah.
that's a fairly common experience for any business.
But to come through it and make it to 25 years, what's the persistence piece? Like what carries you through? Like how did you find that money?
Well, that is a whole other story. So, like I said, I had a lot of credit cards, lines of credit, probably, and this very expensive credit. Like some of those credit cards are like 19%, like it's just ridiculous, right? So not all of them, but some of them. Like it was probably around 400 grand in credit card debt, which
Whoa.
is a lot. And my administrator came to me one day and said, "Your last credit card is maxed out." And like it's just like, okay, we're done. I don't even know if I want to go out and see if I can get another line of credit somewhere. So I'm sitting there like catatonic. Like, what am I going to do? Bankruptcy? Am I going to lose my house? How's my husband going to feel about that? Does he really know? I'm going to have to lay off my staff. I'm going to have to drop my artists. Like, it's just sort of like this
You're planning
numbness.
for the worst.
I never really spent that much time thinking like, what does that mean to fail and who's affected and how is it going to impact me? It just sort of just kept going and going and going, like just trying to figure out how to keep it going. And then when it was like, okay, we're done. Like I can't operate. I don't have any cash. I can't pay anyone. I can't do anything. And like literally 1 hour later, I got an email from a friend of mine in Edmonton who had been previously involved in the music business and he was kind of looking to get back into it. And he kind of was already back into it. He was managing an artist. I had said, well, if you were ever interested in becoming like an investor or six-shooter, like I'd be really open to talking about that. We did talk about that a little bit, but it wasn't like a serious conversation. It was just sort of like, oh,
Sure.
what does that look like or whatever. But I got an email from him, said, I have been thinking about it and I'm really interested in making this investment, like this share purchase. I'm sending you a deposit by
Wow.
transfer. You should have it this afternoon. Like, it was crazy. It was crazy. So I walked back into my administrator's office and said, okay, we're back and pay off this credit card and let's just keep going. I mean, eventually the business did have to like succeed, but like those kind of cash crunches for somebody when there's heavy investment that needs to be made in order to succeed, but you have to be able to weather through it until such time as it pays off. Like I
Yeah.
needed a bridge. I don't know.
It sounds like the lesson coming out of it though is almost creativity. Like you have to find a way to flex your creativity to the point that even if you're in a hard place, it will work out.
I think I was just lucky.
I was going to bring up the concept of luck here, but I don't know if it's luck because I know how hard you work. I know how
Yeah, there's
hard you work.
no shortage of hard work, but it might be also partly ability to cultivate trust with people, and I think that is a big that's a big aspect, not just in terms of like a business partner or an investor, but
Hmm.
also being a manager of artists, like
They're trusting you with their art. Yeah.
their careers, which
Hmm.
is their life, and
Yeah.
so even staff, when they come to work for you, they're like trusting you with their livelihood and their career in a way. So I think that's something that I guess I'm good at is building trust
Yes.
with people. But I think
Hmm.
that comes from just like certain values and characteristics that I have, like and that Helen has that we share, like just
Yeah.
really, really a straight shooter, like just very honest. Transparency is a core value.
That's how you came up with the name of the record label, I'm guessing, but I don't actually know. Is it?
Mm, the record label, when I arrived from Edmonton to Toronto, I immediately kind of noticed like people in Ontario are a little bit different than people from the prairies. Like,
Hmm.
there's just a directness. There's no old money in Edmonton, for example. Like it's just a newer place. People that are kind of mavericks. Like they take risks, they go out there, they don't have anything, they work hard. So I wanted something to kind of evoke the Wild West or that sort of Western spirit. And so that's why I came up with Six Shooter Records.
And then the rest of it just fell into place, the straight shooter element.
Yeah, the straight shooter is just like a coincidence.
Okay. So you started getting into sort of the artist management part of, your career, and it's really interesting watching it. I'm working in radio and being like adjacent to what you do. I've had many years getting to see some of these artists that you get to work with up close, work closely with them and you. So there's like new era, there's old era. Like if we look at NQ Arbuckle and like, some of these artists from back in the day, Deep Dark Woods, newer era would be like William Prince and like July Talk is a sort of a new era thing for Six Shooter. So 2 artist questions that I want you to get into. Start with like how you can spot longevity in an artist to even want to gamble on an artist. And then your approach to actually managing all these people, because you've got a ton of different personalities, but like you said, they trust you.
Well, I think first and foremost, it's does the art move me? Like that. It just has to start there. It always starts with the art.
Does that mean goosebumps for you? What does it mean for art to move, Shauna?
It can mean goosebumps. It doesn't have to come with goosebumps. It might come with tears. It might come with, I don't know. It's a fairly difficult thing to describe, but like you just know in your heart that this artist is what they are saying or trying to express with their art. Is that genuine? Is that original? Is that important? Is it sincere? Is it coming from like a place of wanting to make art? And I guess I really did learn a lot about art at the theater.
Yeah.
And that's the first part of it. Without that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much I like the person. If I don't believe their art is true.
Is there an example of one of these artists and like the moment, like you knew right away?
I always know right away. I mean, I might not necessarily, I always want to see a live show. Because I feel like anything can be faked in a studio, but you can't really fake that live show experience. It's just impossible. Like, I guess most of the artists, I would see them live first, but there have been a couple where maybe I heard a song on them somewhere. Somebody sent me something, or I heard it on the radio, or very rarely, but maybe. Talent isn't the only determinant of success. So the artist needs to have a work ethic and a commitment to what they're doing. And I need to have a vision for how I see it moving forward. They also need to have that vision. So there needs to be some ambition there.
You can't pull them up the hill.
Yeah, well, there's an expression, you can't push a rope.
I like that.
Yeah, so I use that a lot. And sometimes you don't always know that when you go into a relationship and you start working, and then that's a bummer. Sometimes you don't find that out until after you've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's like, oh.
No, I know. And the same goes for podcasts, right? Like when you invest your time and energy into something only to be like, oh, I would love if there is an example or a specific instance. You don't have to mention any artist names or anything, but where it didn't work out and why you had to walk away from it.
Like a situation where maybe an artist will turn down a really good opportunity. I don't know.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah.
If you're spending your time and energy, they have to also be willing to meet you halfway there. That's it.
Yeah.
Another thing that this makes me think of too is like when there's a boundary between personal and professional, and artists can become friends, especially when you work with artists for so long. How do you approach that piece of it?
Artists become your family. Like as manager, not necessarily on a record label. That's kind of more of a business relationship, but definitely as a manager, you are be part of their family.
I'm sure you get
you know,
invited to
and
weddings
like,
all the time and
yeah, like not always, but certainly like most of the time, yeah, like it's such a close relationship. You know so much about their private lives and so much trust. There's so much investment. There's so much time spent. There's a lot of sharing of moments, whether those are really triumphant moments or sometimes really defeating blows. You're together in all of those times. That's what a family is. Family's really kind of, I guess, a big part of who I am. Like I mentioned before, I have all these brothers and sisters, and we have a really close family.
how
And
many?
I have 5 siblings. Like we ran the festival Interstellar Rodeo like a family. Like we run our business like a family. Like I actually feel that way about a lot of my staff too. Some of them have been around for a long time. Like Emily, yeah, 18 years.
Yeah, and when I've been lucky enough to hang out with Shauna, Emily is usually with us. Emily is so special. She's the best.
She's the best. And she's
Yeah,
so smart and so talented, and
yeah.
what a gift, like, that we have worked
Hmm.
together for such a long time, and that she has dedicated her, like, really her whole career to six shooter and to our artists, and so she's part of that family too. Like,
Yeah,
so I don't really find that hard to navigate necessarily. Like,
it's just the way you are.
yeah, it's just the way that I am, and it does provide kind of, I guess, a glue if things aren't going well. You weather through it because it's sort of non-negotiable,
It's like your
or whatever.
vows.
In a way, yeah, it is kind of like that. Like, there's a Luke Doucette song that has a lyric. There's something like, "There's a crack in the family's old Scotch pine. It will heal if given time." From the record and song "Blood's Too
Blood's too
Rich."
rich.
Yeah,
Blood's too rich. And
I,
that's
I
Luke
think.
from Whitehorse, also, by the way, if anyone
Yeah,
was
yeah,
wondering. Yeah.
Luke Doucette. So, um, anyway, I think about that lyric a lot. Like sometimes there is a crack in the fabric of the family's old Scotch pine, and it does heal. Like
Hmm.
you get through it. Luke's a really good example. I started managing him in 1999, so really long time
Before the label.
before I started the label. In fact, the first real release of the label was his solo debut record, Aloha Manitoba. And so we've really worked together for a long time and through a lot. And, our relationship has ebbed and flowed. But it's just still like he's my family. So,
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
he's kind of stuck with me.
I was also going to ask you, recognition, awards, all of that stuff, anniversaries, it's all great. But when you look back at 25 years, I'm sure that the most touching moments are moments that no one even knows about. Is there one that comes to mind?
Touching. I don't know about touching.
She just doesn't like the word. What's a
Most favorite thing I've ever done in my career is Interstellar Rodeo. Like
really?
yeah, I loved it so much, and I would get so much from it. Like it really, it allowed me to work with artists that weren't on my label, I didn't manage. Like, so the curation part of it, I love that. I love just the vibe and like the atmosphere at the festival, and like introducing bands that I know that this audience has never heard of this band and they're gonna love it, and they did, and just I absolutely love that. So 11 times I got to do Interstellar Rodeo, and I loved every single time. It's, well, maybe not 2014, that was super hard. But it was not hard. It wasn't always easy. Just like anything, like I didn't ever work for a music company or a management company. I also never worked for a promoter. And so when Helen and I set out to do a festival, it's not like we're coming at it from like with no knowledge whatsoever, but
Hmm.
we'd never run a festival before. We were very DIY.
Hmm.
Didn't even occur to us to like work with a big promoter. Like
Yeah.
that wasn't even like, I wonder if we should, just didn't even come up, but then there we were like putting up the tents ourselves, or like,
Yeah.
just hauling garbage ourselves. Like it's just, I don't know.
You
Anyway,
do what you got to do. I get
yeah.
it. So the Canadian music industry has had its challenges and is still figuring certain things out. But I think you and Six Shooter have done a really great job at making sure your artists are known internationally. So I wanted to hear a little bit about your approach to that.
It always has been the goal. It is especially the goal now because where it used to be really a feasible prospect to have a sustainable career within the borders of Canada, that's not that achievable anymore because, at least from a record label side of things, 80% of our revenue comes from streaming. And streaming is based on the premise of scale. And Canada is too small for streaming to scale in the way that it needs to in order to be profitable. So the really only way to make money on recorded music is to have more than the Canadian market. And so that's just key.
Yeah.
You can still make money like as a Canadian only artist if you're successful touring, or maybe you have other like saying placements or something like that. Like, although those are crapshoot and you can't predict them or whatever. But even the touring side of things, the streaming metrics and the social media metrics really drive ticket sales as well. So that just becomes the driver everywhere. So it makes it almost impossible to have a lucrative career unless you are able to capture a market outside of Canada. We've always been focused on that anyway. So, we have a lot of relationships and strategies for developing a fan base in America or Europe or Australia or whatever. And, we work with The Orchard, which is it's now owned by Sony, but it was started out as an independent digital distributor. It was a global distributor. Whereas if you, this is maybe a bit inside baseball, but if you work with a major label, and maybe it's different now, but at the time, what would happen is they would have a territorial approach to their distribution. If you had a distribution in Canada and maybe America, but that didn't mean that you had distribution in Brazil or Japan. You would have to find partners within that ecosystem that is willing to put out your record in their territory. And that's like pretty hard to,
Yeah.
Whereas like with The Orchard, you just flip a switch and you're everywhere. So
That's cool.
yeah, so the attitude at The Orchard now is still very much autonomous and independent. Like the sort of corporate culture of Sony doesn't really creep in that much, I don't find.
That's
Not that
good.
I'm saying I don't really know much about the corporate culture at Sony. Maybe it's awesome. But the major labels tend to be previously anyway structured fairly similarly in this sort of territorial way. So just always being independent has allowed us to meaningfully go out and try to develop other markets without having this kind of barrier. I just think like our artists, like they have a path and it's different for every artist. And like some artists that might be radio play, maybe they have a radio hit and
Chasing a number one, right? It's
yeah,
different.
like they have a song that's like catchy and all of that, pop song or a rock song. You might have an artist that gets a lot of press, like Tanya Tagaq would be an example of that. Like everywhere she goes, she's on the cover. Like she's just a press darling. They love her. She's on on covers of all kinds of magazines, and that's like one of her pathways. With the Dead South, our biggest band, their pathway was YouTube, and they had a video that they made for $12,000 that now has like, I don't know, hundreds of millions of
Should
views.
I
Like,
look?
yeah, look it up.
Let's see. Let's see. I know exactly which video you are talking about.
In
And
hell,
how
I'll be
I'll
in.
be in good company. Let's see. 4,075.5 million views.
Yeah, something like that. Like a half a billion.
Like, what? Yeah, I
So
can't even.
that's a lot. Like you can't even think about the number that high. And I mean, certainly there's other things that are higher, but That's a worldwide
Crazy.
audience, right? Like it's like a lot more people than live in Canada.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't work with any artists that broke on TikTok, but there are artists
Yes.
who broke on TikTok, right? So anyways, it's just different pathways
Yeah.
to get there. And the Dead South, that's their pathway, and they tour all over the world. And
Look at them now. Yeah.
yeah.
In closing, I'm wondering if you were starting this label today instead of in 2000, is there anything you would do differently? The industry has
Yeah,
certainly changed a
it's a
lot.
really good question. Like the thing is about the music business is that it has been constantly changing since I started in it. So the sort of transfer of physical to digital and from geographic to like local to global, these kinds of trends. I think that there's some ways that the music business has fundamentally changed. I would say that A&R has changed, like
Hmm.
artist discovery. It used to be that you could check out a band that was maybe opening for another band, or you go and see a band play live, or maybe you'd see them at a festival. That still happens actually, but those artists that get those festival spots, they don't get them unless they have these great social media metrics. So that is how artists are discovered by both industry and fans now. And so that changes A&R. It changes some of the structural processes that worked traditionally in the past, like things like showcase conferences. There's still some that do work, but that are worthwhile, but that's just not how bands are discovered anymore. That you might
Hmm.
find, and I have done this. Like I signed an artist who I just think is like a superstar, but doesn't have the social media following that is required to succeed.
Mm.
And so if you don't have that, you can't catch a break. Like you can't get that festival slot or that opening slot, or
The barrier to entry is a lot
you can't
different.
get the radio play. Like you just can't. Like everyone just looks at the numbers, and the numbers are, maybe they're faked, but they're readily available to anybody that looks. And so it sort of becomes the everything, and that has a lot of artists finding themselves in addition to being an artist and doing all the work that is involved in being an artist, they now also have to be an influencer, which I reject. I think they can be an artist online, and they don't have to fall into the traps of influencers. It's not the same thing, but it
Hmm.
is exhausting and kind of soul destroying
Yeah.
for people just generally to be online so much. So I really worry about that aspect of it, and
Hmm.
what's lost. I mean, there's upsides too. The thing is that it doesn't matter how niche you are. There's a global audience out there waiting to discover you. You can be a klezmer house band or something. You know what I mean? Like, you could like be like the most weirdest thing possible, and there's going to be an audience that you can find.
Yeah.
So that part's really exciting. So you see the death of genre as well. I feel like that's dying.
That's good for everybody.
Yeah, and I think that's good. Like, I mean, it makes it
Yeah.
harder to market. It's certainly easier to market in this, like, I like country music or whatever, but now people don't necessarily identify themselves as being a fan of this kind of music. It used to be
Hmm.
like that. The discovery of artists to build a scene in your local city, those things have changed, and it's hard to embrace those changes because
For
I
sure.
I, I feel like there's a dramatic shift in culture as a result.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the idea of playing to an empty bar has happened in every artist's career somewhere along the way.
For sure.
And I think it's about remembering that those five people who see you in the early days, who tell five people like word of mouth, when you love a band, when you
Hmm.
love music, when you hear something that you are stuck on and so excited about, you will tell someone about it.
Hmm.
So if anything, word of mouth is still there. just interest in music in general. It still
Well,
matters that we go see bands live. It still matters that we.
yeah, but are people going, like, I think people are seeing the big shows. I don't know, in the small clubs. I guess I just went to a small club show last night and it was packed, but
Where? Which one?
at the Cameron House, I saw Cadence Weapon
Nice.
play, and it was really great. But I do think like we have moved from a monoculture to a fragmented culture, and
Yeah.
word of mouth is less effective because so-called tastemakers or whatever, whether that's like your friend that has the cool taste in music, or it's like a writer at a publication that doesn't exist anymore, like that they're,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, so there's there's fewer avenues for that kind of, and even if it is a word of mouth, it's like usually it's amplified on a social media, in a social media ways. I do think like, we will figure it out and come on the other side, but I see that it's just like, it must be really hard right now to be an artist that's trying to build it old school. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to get a gig at my local club and they're going to get people out and they're going to tell their friends and da da da. Like that just seems like it's over. In fact, what you have to do now is like get a TikTok account and, start performing on TikTok.
So the last thing I wanted to do with you, these are like one song title answers. I would like you to answer each of these with a song and artist from your roster. Okay?
Okay. See how I do.
Okay. Song you would choose if you were getting married tomorrow. Wedding song.
Well, probably The Spark by William Prince.
Love that. Song you would choose for a funeral.
Funeral songs. It's a tougher one. It's just because there's just so many. But there's a song. There's a song by. It depends on who dies.
Fair.
But there's a song that NQ Arbuckle has. It's called "Darkness Has Fallen." It's from the album "Last Supper in a Cheap Town."
Okay. Surrounded by friends for a Friday night barbecue, dance party, whatever you are doing socially. Feel good vibes.
Probably I'm going to go with some Wet Secret song.
Wet Secret, such a good name.
Yeah, there's a really good band. And it's just which one would I pick?
Artist is fine. You can go with Wet Secret. That's cool.
Okay, let's go with the Wet Secrets.
And last but not least, song you would send to a friend to cheer them up if they're having a tough day.
Well, maybe I would send them In Hell, I'll Be in Good Company by the Dead South.
Well, Shauna, thank you so much for the time today.
Yeah, thank you.
Your career is super interesting. And I think, some folks listening who maybe don't know the inner workings of the music industry will really appreciate your perspective from an independent, female-founded perspective. So thanks for sharing all of that.
All right. Well, thank you. This is a very nice interview, Sarah.
You'll find more information about Shauna's bands and roster in the show notes. You can check out all the amazing art that comes out of Six Shooter Records and her amazing team. Make sure you look up Helen Britton as well. And I normally say, let's pass the torch on to someone else that you would say has a great story to share. Who would you suggest? Another woman you admire in the industry?
Well, there's a lot to choose from because I have a lot of friends and heroes in the music industry. Sue de Cartier. She's probably my number one person that has given me great advice and has lots of good stories. And
is she a sister?
We tell people we're cousins. It's a really long story about what the actual truth is there, but it's anyway. But for sure, she manages Blue Rodeo, and she's been doing that since she was 22.
There you go.
So really long, successful career. And, of course, there's Sandy Pandia. You probably already had her on your podcast, but if you haven't, then you are remiss because she's incredible.
Thank you for all of this. Appreciate you. And thank you so much for listening.
Thanks a lot.